Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in to the Zoom room. Excited to have you here. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I will wait for as many of you as possible to join. We're going to kick things off in just a moment. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Whilst you settle in, I would love it if you could find the chat for me. And why don't you just go ahead and share in the chat where you're joining from, where in the world you're joining from, and what the weather is like outside for you today. There will be people joining us from all over the world. So please do go ahead and find the chat box and share with me where you're joining from and what the weather is like for you outside. So we're going to get started in just a moment. Sarah is in Buckinghamshire in the UK and it's sunny. Lucky for you, Sarah. Tanya's in Hertfordshire and it's sunny. Arvin is in India and it's raining outside. Fantastic. Mel is joining from Wandsworth. Nicola's joining from Folkestone in Kent and it's sunny, getting a little bit chilly now. Indeed, in the UK. Hi, everyone. If you're just joining, find the chat and let me know where you're joining from, and we will get started in just a moment. For those of you joining the Future of Wellness series for the first time, hello, my name is Lauren Arms. I'm the founder and CEO of WELLTODO, and it's such a pleasure to have so many of you joining us from all over the world. Cindy's joining us from Cape Town and it's sunny in Cape Town. I feel like it's always sunny in Cape Town. Rachel's in sunny London. Faye's in Newcastle. Trust me, Lauren, it's cold up here. Oh dear, winter is coming in the UK. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching on the replay, then a very warm welcome to you as well from wherever you are joining us from. We will make the most of our time together and we'll jump in. I'm sure we will have people joining us throughout the session. For those of you who are with me now live, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for making time to join us. We're really excited about this series. This is the second series in our Future of Wellness series. We're obviously talking about where the world of wellness is going amidst a very, challenging and different world that we're operating in as business owners and industry professionals right now. I would love to know from those of you who are joining us live, if you could again find the chat and just let me know if you could sum up which aspect of wellness you work in. There are obviously many, many facets of the industry that at WELLTODO we explore. It could be fitness, beauty, nutrition, or any other category. I would love for you to just let me know in the chat which aspect of wellness you are working in, whether you're running a business or working for a wellness business. Please go ahead and let me know. Louisa is working in nutrition. I would love to hear from the rest of you. Which aspect of wellness are you working in? Tanya is marketing services for fitness and nutrition business owners. Arvin's working in yoga. Terrific. Well, today's session is all about wellness for everyone. We're going to be exploring diversity, inclusion, accountability. And these are all such critical conversations, or this is such a critical conversation. We've got an incredible lineup of founders who are joining us today to share their insights and their experiences, and of course, their perspectives on this topic. Let's see who else we've got. Sarah's in helping health, fitness, and wellness businesses develop their brand strategy. Niels runs a business rating and reviewing service for natural health providers. Jenny's the founder of Hands on Mindfulness. Rachel is marketing for a beauty brand. Incredible, great. Lauren, lovely to have you on the call. Nicola, great to have you on the call as well. Super. So the conversation that we're having today has, of course, garnered the attention that it rightly deserves this year. And as business owners, as industry professionals, we are all responsible for playing a part in elevating this conversation and also taking action around this subject. And we're going to hear from 3 founders today about how they are implementing changes and new thinking in their own businesses and how that is impacting the larger wellness industry landscape. And so we're all responsible for breaking down barriers to create a more accessible industry. And my hope is that today's session will inspire you to either continue with your efforts or perhaps to begin to engage more in this conversation and think about how your business can be adapting to respond to this conversation. So our mission at WELLTODO is very simple. You all have a clear vision for how you want to positively impact your clients and to engage in these important conversations about the future of wellness. And we are here to support you with that. And so our mission is simple. We help people like you to build incredible businesses and careers in the wellness industry. And we've been doing that for the last 5.5 years. We arm you with the tools that you need to understand market trends, to understand, what your competitors are doing, understanding where the landscape is shifting and what the future of the wellness industry will look like for you and how that will impact your business decisions. And so we do this through our digital content, of which many of you will be subscribed, our weekly newsletters, our podcast, The Business of Wellness. You may not know that we also support clients with hiring talent into the wellness industry, and we also help with marketing your brand, selling your product or service in the digital world through digital marketing strategy, and of course through events like this. If we can be of service to you in any way with any of these services, then please do reach out to us or let us know in the chat if you would like to chat with our team. We also are very fortunate to work with a pool of incredible partners who have the expertise that we do not have. And they are, of course, very mission aligned with us, which means that they understand the wellness industry. They already work with many of the industry's leading brands, some of whom might be joining us for the session today. And the first of these partners is Bird & Bird, who are a full service global firm. We've been working them for about 5 years now, and I'll invite both Emma and Heather to join me on the call now. Emma, thanks so much for being here. So Bird & Bird have got 30 offices around the world. Their wellness industry client list spans fitness, nutrition, tech, mental health, and many more. They work with businesses from early stage startup all the way through to multinational businesses in highly competitive industries. And of course, they have a dedicated team of wellness experts, and they've built this expertise over the years. We've built a very fruitful partnership with them where we've shared insights into who's leading the way as far as disruptive businesses in the wellness space. And Emma and her team are not just experts in their field of expertise of legal service and advice. And they can, of course, support you with everything from fundraising and commercial contracts right through to brand protection, of which Emma is a particular specialist. And so I will pass over to Emma to just let you know a little bit more about how Bird & Bird can help you, and especially since you are part of our event series today, where they can support you in any support you might need and following up from the session.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Lauren, and hi to everyone. Thank you for joining from all of the different places that you've popped into the chat box. As Lauren mentioned, my name's Emma Green. I'm an associate at Bird & Bird and also head up the international wellness team. So our wellness team of experts are really well versed in what this industry demands of everybody operating within it. And that's whether you are a small business, whether you are a sole trader, whether you're growing an international brand. I think it's really important to get some legal advice early on, even if it's just to map out what your business needs to consider over the coming years. We do cover all different kinds of law. So Lauren mentioned a couple there. The most common that we see are intellectual property. So thinking about your trademarks and your branding, corporate, so fundraising when you get to the stage of growth, and commercial contracts. But I think what's really relevant as well today, especially given the topic we're going to be discussing, is also employment. It's coming really under the spotlight, and it's something that even if you're a small business, you need to think about how your policies in place respect all of your workforce and move with times and stay relevant and are flexible. So that's something we've been advising an awful lot of businesses on for a long time, but has really come under the spotlight in recent months. Within your digital goodie bag, which I understand you get after the session, you'll also get a free 30-minute consultation with either myself or one of my colleagues. So if you want to arrange a chat, please do get in touch. No obligation at all, but we're just very passionate to make sure that companies get the right legal support so that you can continue to grow the business. If you also Google Two Birds Wellness, then you can go to our microsite, and there's lots of documents and information and guides that you can download there to get yourself more acquainted with the different areas of legal support and what you might need to be thinking about as you developing your business or perhaps working with clients of your own. So it's great to see you all, well, not see you all, but if we were in our offices, we would be seeing you all. Hopefully we can have you back soon, but enjoy the rest of the session and do get in touch, like I say, if you want to have a chat.
Thank you so much, Emma. I really appreciate it. And as Emma mentioned, we would usually run our live events in the beautiful Bird and Bird offices on the 11th floor in London. That would mean that some of you wouldn't have been able to attend. So the upside is that we now have a global audience joining us for these event series. The downside is that we miss out on the beautiful view or vista of the London skyline. But thank you, Emma, for joining us from your home office instead.
Yeah.
We also have Heather joining us from MindBody, who are our second partner for this event series. MindBody are a brand that many of you will be aware of, may work with, may also partner with, and they've been a tremendous support for their more than 67,000 clients globally this year through all of the challenges that have been faced. Their software allows hundreds of thousands of passionate health, wellness, and beauty professionals to connect with the millions of clients that they serve, including many of you. And so, Heather, thank you so much for joining us and supporting the well-to-do community. I'd love for you to just share a little bit about how you're supporting our audience. And so I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So yeah, I'm Heather from MindBody. We are the leading technology platform for the fitness and wellness industries. We've got over 60,000 businesses across the globe who are using our integrated software and payments platform to run, market their businesses, including some of the industry's kind of leading providers like More Yoga, who you're going to hear from later on today. We also have the MindBody app, where we're kind of hosting over 350,000 classes every month. So it's classes and appointments. And what we found recently is kind of due to the pandemic, more and more of those classes are now virtual. We brought forward the launch of our virtual wellness platform this year in order to meet the needs of our customers who are kind of forced to close down due to lockdown. And it was developed specifically for the fitness and wellness industries. So rather than kind of offering classes just through Zoom, what we did was kind of create a platform that was tailored for the needs of the classes and what instructors needed to see, and kind of integrated that into their booking platform to make sure that, you know, only people who paid for the classes can access them, and it was completely secure. As an attendee, you will be receiving the virtual goodie bag. So that's going to include the 15% discount for new customers on MindBody software, and it will also have some details on how to book a free demo with one of our specialists if it's something you're interested in. So please do feel free to get in touch.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Heather. Thanks to both of you for joining us. We're really proud of our partnerships, and of course, they offer a lot of value to all of you who are joining us. So please do take advantage of the opportunities presented. And of course, as both Emma and Heather mentioned, there'll be links to those in the follow-up emails and also in the chat right now. Thank you both.
Thanks, guys.
So let's meet our speakers and dive into today's content. So as Emma and Heather leave, we are welcoming our three speakers. And as they just turn on their videos and unmute themselves, I want to just remind you all in the chat, if you do have questions today as we go through the content, then please do make use of the Q&A function. So that we can just track questions there and do our best to answer them at the end. So I'm sure you're all very proficient with Zoom now. If you go to the panel at the bottom of your screens, you'll see a Q&A function, and you can feed your questions through to us there. Jules, Lola, Shamir, welcome. Really, really stoked to have all three of you joining me. Thanks for making time from your respective home offices. So what I'm going to do is, rather than introduce you myself, I'm just going to hand over to the three of you, and we'll start with Jules because you're in my top left-hand corner today. And I'd love for you to just share a 30-second intro, who you are and the role you play in your respective business.
Sure. So hi guys, thank you so much for having me again. So I'm the founder and CEO of the NUCO. We specialize in developing supplements that are absorbed either through your digestive system or transdermally, so topical supplements or sensory supplements. And I suppose what we're best known for is developing products that truly drive results and really work, but also a brand that I think has really evolved the narrative within wellness. I'm obviously originally from the UK, but I set up the business in the US. So today we're about 95% US in terms of US-UK split.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jules. And so special to have you back. If anyone has listened to the Business of Wellness podcast, you can hear a lot more about the journey that Jules has taken to build her business there as well. Lola, I would love for you to just introduce yourself and what you do as well.
So hi, everybody. Lauren, thanks for having me. So I am a registered nutritionist based in London. I'm also the co-founder of Moody Month, which is a tracking app focused on hormones and moods. So that's what I've been up to for the last few years. Well, the nutrition before that, but the Moody aspect we launched a couple of years ago. So we're just working on growing that.
Awesome. Great. I'm really looking forward to diving into some of, some more of how you've done that and the impact that you're having on the conversation that we're diving into today as well. Shamir, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I think the last time I saw you were actually on a panel doing this, so it's natural that we would connect in the digital space to do it as well. Can you share a little bit about what you're up to?
It was, as you were saying before we came on here, it was like the last fun thing that actually doing in a social
in person,
especially work related.
Yeah.
Hi to everyone from London. My name's Shamir Sidhu. I'm the CEO of More Yoga. You can probably see that from my title. I started off as a personal trainer and went from personal training into yoga. We now run the largest privately owned yoga studio network in London, or in England, but we're based in London. Primarily we're health and fitness, but we're covering other dimensions such as mental health, physical, spiritual and emotional health. We're based pre-pandemic, so I have to say the word, sorry guys, pandemic. Pre-pandemic we were mainly physical, like studio based with 35 studios. We've had to, I'm going to say the word, pivot. Got to get it out there straight away. I mean, it's going to be...
We should have a bingo sheet for these words, right? Like, who's going to say them first?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, excuse me. So we've got 35 studios, 300 teachers. We do teacher training. We've got digital services now, post-pandemic. We are now reopened our studios. 20 out of 35 we've reopened.
Awesome.
It's half timetable, half capacity. It's all very challenging, but I'm here to talk about not how the business is doing, talking about something else. So
well, I'm sure it will come up for sure. But yes, we're obviously spending the next hour really talking about diversity, accessibility, really changing or challenging the wellness lexicon. And so I'm really appreciative of the three of you for making time. Jules, I want to start with you and kind of dive straight in really. I know that, again, if our listeners do take time to listen to our podcast together, and I've known you for many years, but this concept of wellness is something that you have been quite outspoken about in wanting to really challenge and change. And so on a broad level, because of course we'll dive deeper into this throughout the session, can you share a little bit more about how you have seen wellness be defined by the industry and perhaps some of why the NUCO as a brand is seeking to change that?
Sure, I'll start from the very beginning. So I used to work in the wellness industry prior to launching the NUCO. I myself struggled with IBS and different sort of digestive issues and landed on wellness as a solution, which really worked for me. But it also highlighted things that I thought could be really damaging for people. So back in 2017, I was reading a lot of content, and I landed on this idea that the wellness industry was really something that was essentially disguised as, well, it was a new diet industry, but it was disguised in this clean eating notion that everybody almost wanted to be part of, almost like a fad. And there was a really interesting article actually in the New York Times called Smash the Wellness Industry. And it was about an editor who had developed an eating disorder because she'd been part of this sort of trendy, clean eating conversation with her friends. And what I always thought that was interesting about the industry was that the industry had almost like a look and feel. We portrayed an image of what health should look like. And traditionally, it was an image of a female in her early 20s who was blonde and wearing sort of yoga pants and looking amazing, sort of bouncing around, really happy all the time. And that was almost an image that people were really fighting for and they wanted to achieve. But in reality, when you really talk to people about what health means or what it feels like or what wellness should actually mean, it's about doing something for yourself for the right reasons to make yourself feel better. So that was something that I found relatively interesting, but it didn't almost stop there. I think that whilst wellness wasn't very inclusive to different genders, it also wasn't very inclusive to different cultures. So the way that we've really wanted to elevate the conversation is representing everybody and really making sure that everybody feels like they have a right to be part of our community. And that's not just male and female, that's also trans and non-binary people. And then beyond that, it's elevating the conversation as to what health should be. You know, is it something that we should just be sort of bubbling down to exercise and calories, or really do we need to be talking about physical and mental health as one? So yeah, that's sort of where we started, and then that's sort of where we are right now. And I think that particularly in the last year, we've just made such monumental jumps in really, like I say, adapting the conversation around health and wellness.
Absolutely. And even from the perspective of the imagery that you use as a brand, personification, I suppose, of a brand and who you decide to visibly represent your brand is such an important part of it. But so too are, you know, the strategies, the actions that you take in the community. And we're going to dive more into some of the, you know, not just paying lip service or brand service to this conversation, but more of how as a brand you've actually kind of stepped up to make change as well. And I think that's a really important part of this conversation. By the way, for those of you joining us live, please do share your perspectives as we go through in the chat. If, you know, one of our speakers says something that you agree with or that resonates with you, we would love to hear it in the chat and create an interactive experience for you as well, and to bring you into the conversation. I think actually the next image that we have in our slides is sort of sums up what you've just said there, Jules, about the sort of pin-up girl for the wellness industry. And Shamir, as I move to you, you know, there are plenty of stereotypes in the yoga world, whether that be the imagery we see or who we perceive that yoga is for or not for. I know your vision with More Yoga was to really provide that high quality yoga teaching, but in an accessible environment and at a price that isn't an obstacle for people. Can you talk about how you facilitated that breaking down of barriers into the yoga world?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jules hit the nail on the head. It's that pin-up image that, you know, that gives yoga, especially it's you know, the white middle class 30 something Lululemon, you know, it's all branded, and you know, it's very one-dimensional. And for me, coming out of the fitness industry, the reason why we moved into yoga is because yoga was a lot more all-encompassing. found that when we're doing fitness, it was as Jules was saying, it's a lot of like calorie counting, and it's just about, you know, you're just trying to change your body shape, and that's somehow going to affect your mind, which it does in some instances, but it's not really a deep dive. And when I found yoga through contact, that's when I really saw the benefits and how it could change, you know, how we could really make positive change. The biggest issue that I saw was that it was just very expensive, and with that comes major barriers to entry for wellness, which should be a given, really. I mean, you know, it's a different conversation, but it should be prescribed by the NHS at a minimum for cure and prevention. So back into the personal training days, it's always about exercise for access to exercise for everyone. How do you stop the people that are the lowest in the lowest sectors of society? How do you help them? How do you give them access to the products and services that other people that are much better off have access to? So prior to setting up the yoga, we used to do a free boot camp in the park for like 4 years. So we did that for free every week, and that was really successful. But in the end, we stopped. It was successful I say really successful. We had to stop because people don't like free. After a while, people stop coming when it's free. So, you know, it was a struggle, but we've learned to strike the balance. So access to exercise was for everyone, and we saw what the landscape was like. You know, high priced models, fluffy towels, scented towels, and free temperatures of towels. You know, a lot of things to do with towels. We were like, right, how can we sort this out? All right, let's not give them any towels. We surveyed we started off in the basement. We were initially small group yoga, but that proved to be just the beginning of our journey. We found that asking our customers, can they do without a shower, and can they do without a reception, and all the little the add-ons. Would you be interested if the price was a lot lower? And 90% of the people were in. And that was it. That was the beginning of More Yoga. So for us, it's always been about getting that price in there so that people who are from lesser incomes can afford it. And that's just the beginning. That's just for the people who are working. We've gone above and beyond that. Day to day, I'm just thinking, who are the people that are the fringes that aren't being helped? So for instance, we've got unemployed, we've got people who are unemployed get classes for £3, and that's like, when I've talked to people who own boutiques rather than my budget boutique, they're like, when you look at their offering, their UB40 or their unemployed offering is like a £20 drop in, 10% off, which is like, who's got £17 as a disposable income from the communities that I'm trying to access. They're not trying to access those communities, so they don't have to deal with that. But, we're looking at the whole spectrum, and that's students, seniors, people who are working emergency services, military, etc. So, that's our mission in terms of pricing. But then in terms of high quality yoga, we have internal training schemes. We give our teachers workshops. We have our own certified courses internally that we provide for free, and that helps for us to build our main service, which is yoga teaching.
Incredible. It's incredibly inspiring, and I'm so glad that you were able to join the session, Shamir, because it's people talk about how do we make the wellness industry accessible, and you're such an example of how you found a commercially viable way as well to achieve that. So we'll keep moving and come back and dive a little bit deeper into that. Jules actually touched on some of these sort of headlines that inspired her that were challenging this kind of wellness lexicon. And we've got some here for our audience to see over the years, raising the question about who wellness is for, who can access wellness, what brands need to do to actually break down these barriers for entry. Sometimes it's around price, other times it's around brand, and just gain access for those marginalized groups of consumers. Lola, Moody Month was obviously created again with this idea of kind of challenging the existing narrative around wellness, in particular women's health and hormones. Can you talk about, why it's been so important that brands like yours kind of pioneer this more accessible and relevant approach to wellness and the specific conversation that you're having?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the fact that we've built this technology that is essentially free at the moment, we're really proud of that. It was one of our central missions to be able to provide this really important evidence-based progressive health information around hormones and moods and women's health to anyone who had access to a smart device. So we're really pleased with that aspect of the business. In terms of going back to what everyone's been talking about, in terms of this kind of hegemonic Eurocentric identity of wellness, which does it exist? Is it a real thing? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but the wider our wider world doesn't contain women who look like that. And I think what's interesting is that and I know if you may have seen that with all of our visual identity, all of our branding, with our business, right from the offset, we wanted to ensure that all female identities were included in what we were doing and they could see themselves in what we were doing. So so that was really important to us. Yeah.
I've definitely seen that across the board, and your business is a primary example, but it's so great to see so many larger legacy brands realizing too that women, men, whoever are tired of seeing themselves shoeboxed into a certain type or look that doesn't necessarily create that aspirational effect that perhaps it once did with glossy magazines. We've kind of evolved as a society, haven't we? And we now think of ourselves as being individuals and being different, and we're moving into this era of celebrating diversity.
Absolutely. And I think that we want to see ourselves ultimately, and we do look at those things to aspire to be, but I think when they're sort of way off mark or they're not, you can't relate to them, they become actually unappealing. So and I think we're living in such a polarized time, and I think there is this sense that people, especially millennials, Generation Z, they want to see things coming together. And in wellness, you think, well, it's all about us feeling our best selves, optimizing our health, being productive, being kind, being yogic, all of those things. I mean, that is, that means that we need to look at, equality and justice and fairness and all of those words that are flying around, but we need to look at that. And I think that since the recent Black Lives Movement, a door has been opened, and I think people are understanding that, or brands are understanding that, the power of the Black pound, for example, the progressive pound. People are wanting to. There are lots of different types of people who want to spend money on wellness. Whether they're larger women who want to wear beautiful yoga clothes because that's what they do every day, and they want to feel good about it. So it's not, expand your range, your size ranges. So yeah, there's lots of things to think about, and I think that door can't be closed if you want a successful business.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Jules and Shamir are doing wonderfully.
Yeah, and I mean, you've segued beautifully into my next question, Lola. It's like you knew the next slide, because we as 2020 has highlighted more than ever, today's consumers expect brands to go beyond just those performative acts of this means something to us as a brand, and actually demonstrate real long-term commitment to change. And so Jules, for you as a brand, as a founder, you've been quite candid about some of the global issues that as a brand you've been navigating, whether that's COVID or Black Lives Matter. How do you decide as a brand what to take a stand for? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you're also a startup with a small team trying to do the best that you can. So how have you decided, you know, where to invest your time, energy into real change? And what are some of the initiatives that you've implemented to do that?
I think internally, we've always had a really clear mission. So in terms of deciding what we need to support, it's always easy internally. I think there's a conversation to be had around the steps that I have to take really sometimes to push some of these things out, because we have got VC funding. We've always had VC funding. And a lot of the times we are one of the first wellness brands to really speak out. And so sometimes it's quite a difficult conversation. I mean, I've had conversations with investors who truly thought that a supplement brand that was talking about digestive health should not be talking about mental health, like that no one was going to understand it. Or I mean, I could literally list out a million things. So I think it's really important to define what your brand mission is and to truly live by it. And then when everybody else thinks that you're a little bit crazy, to really do things for the right reasons. I think being performative, is something that I've always been extremely aware of. So I think actually we've probably done more things that we've told people about. And I think, again, it's because we've defined what we believe we need to do as a wellness company to truly run good business. And that's not because we want to create a landing page so that everybody can see how amazing we are. It's because we believe that that is the right thing to do. In terms of our mission at the NewCo, it's an internal mission, so it might sound a little bit weird to people who don't work here. But we say we exist to improve the health of the world, and that we achieve our mission by doing three things. The first is developing environmentally conscious products that really work and really impact people how they feel. The second is creating a community whereby all people feel the right to being in the wellness community. And then lastly, it's advocating and supporting initiatives that really increase access to health for marginalized communities. And so within that framework, hopefully you'd be able to see that actually we feel like we need to have a voice when there are the wildfires in Australia, or when we're talking about racial injustice, or when we are talking about healthcare in America, because that is aligned to the mission that we have as a business. I think that we've always believed in what we internally call the we in wellness, which is this idea that our health is intrinsically connected with the health of others, with our communities, and also the health of the planet. And I can't imagine a better example than COVID. When our community is sick, we're sick. When our food chain is sick, we're sick. So that's really sort of, like I say, the basis for our mission and how we decide what we really want to be part of. I think long term, we are starting to really define what charities we want to get behind. So this year, we're really focusing on clean water, which I think, again, it's one of these things that people aren't really that aware of, but we're losing more lives to not having access to clean water around the world than we're losing to all types of violence, including wars. So a sort of a long-term initiative for us is to bring a source of clean water to 5 different communities in the developing world. But aside from that, there's still a lot of work that we're doing with local communities in the US, whether that is Black trans women, whether that is mental health, of really, I mean, whether it's donating or actually what we were doing before, which was actually going as a team and supporting initiatives. I think some of the things that we need to do to just improve the way that we do things is probably be a little bit more transparent. The word transparency is interesting. I've always thought that it basically meant that you should tell your customers the things that you're not doing very well and just be honest about where you're at, which I think we've always tried to do. But I think also just bringing them in on the initiatives that we do sort of behind the scenes, you know, as a team, however big or small they are, because now more than ever, people are really voting with their dollars. You know, they're buying into what your business represents and not really just the product that you're selling.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so powerful. And we've got some statistics from an Edelman report coming up in the slides too about exactly that, that people are truly spending with brands that they feel are in alignment with their values. And they only know that because of that transparency, right? We only know when a brand is in alignment with us when they tell us what they're doing. So it's really critical. Lola, I'd love to speak to you about this education piece. So, you know, how important it is that as a brand, you provide your audiences with access to education and empower them by, you know, really kind of, I guess that empowerment in playing in creating real accessibility and inclusion within the wellness space, and what perhaps you would say from your experience, maybe brands should be doing more of with respect to that?
Yeah, so, you know, for sure, I think any health kind of platform or practitioner is an educator, and that is their responsibility. But as much as that, you know, when I think about myself as a clinician, although I'm an educator of that information, I'm also a student because I learn a lot from the patients that I see in clinic, but also from feedback that we have with our community at Moody as well. So, but yeah, in terms of education, I mean, education is everything. It's what gives us the confidence to be able to talk about our bodies, to have the language to be able to explain how we feel, what's going on with us, the symptoms that are coming up or disappearing or whatever, you know, along your health continuum. And it's a really empowering thing, because if you can walk into see a doctor, for example, if one of our users has been using Moody Month, learning all this information, goes off to speak to their GP about a particular concern, they have hopefully that language, and hopefully they've been tracking as well. So they've got tracking information around that particular symptom. And there's a different level of confidence that comes with having that information, being armed with it, having the language, having the words, and being able to challenge if somebody's not listening to you. So yeah, incredibly important education. And obviously, as I said earlier, you know, the way that we've done it is that it feels really great to be able to say that lots of different types of people can access this information, that much of it could have been very much part of a privileged wellness scene. You know, I'm a private practitioner. I have worked for the NHS in the past, but on a very kind of limited level. And so I see people who have got a bit of money to pay for a session with me. And that's always troubled me because, you know, I need to work and earn money, but at the same time, this information that I talk about around women's health and hormones, I know that my GP doesn't talk to their patients about that. So yeah, so developing Moody Month was just a really great opportunity to be able to have this information in one place and it be very accessible.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I have this conversation all the time with experts and practitioners in wellness who, you know, do work privately with patients because they need more than 15 minutes to solve a problem with their patients, and aren't able to necessarily do that within the structures of a public health system, which is unfortunate. And why platforms like Moody Month are so incredibly valuable to those who maybe cannot access that level of care or prevention, and therefore, you know, will seek out their education and empowerment around their own body and health from a business like yours. Shamia, I'd love to talk about the accountability piece. We're kind of segueing a little bit here, but as your business has scaled up and grown, I'd love to know what are some of the sort of key strategies that you've employed to make sure that your brand doesn't veer from its original mission. As you get bigger, you have, you know, more complexities around running a business, and what as a founder kind of keeps you accountable?
Yeah, a lot of challenges there. So the team is probably, you know, growing a business, having the right team is paramount. If you don't have the right people in place, it's going to be structure is going to be weak. So I've had people working with us from the personal training days who believe in the project and have seen the direction we're going, and we've hired a lot of people from within the yoga sphere as we've been building up, and they're buying into our core mission of the accessibility and affordability. So we found ourselves in a position where we've got really engaged team who really buy into our values, and it's a very strong position to be in. And as we scale, we want to be bringing depth to the team. So that when we're talking about our teaching capacity, we found that that a lot of people that were trialing for us were failing. They weren't meeting our standard. They weren't amazing. We're not raising the bar too high. We just have standards, and we're finding that people who are qualified are just didn't have the credentials that we expected. So from that, we've decided to develop our own teacher training program, and that's going to help us build that brand strength as we grow. Other parts is to do with one of our main aspects of our business is the affordability. So we've always tried to keep our pricing as affordable as possible. In fact, I'm nicknamed the CPO, not CEO, Chief Pricing Officer. I dream up ways of making things more affordable, to the dismay of my team.
Your financial.
Yeah, because sometimes when you add it all up, it's just like it's all very thin. And it's all good when it's a strong volume business, and you multiply it by 35 studios. There is break even and profitability in there. But coming to post-pandemic or pandemic times, you're built on very fragile footing. It doesn't all those good ideas don't go down well when you want to reverse some of your pricing models for your customers. But even in post-pandemic world or during pandemic world, with half timetable, half capacity, we still have to have that mission of affordability. Yeah, there's a bit of feedback from negative feedback. No one wants to pay more money for the same product. But those are just challenges that we have today, and it's not too dissimilar to any other bricks and mortar business. In terms of how we run the business, it's a horizontal structure. I come up with ideas. I sit in a dark room getting visions, and they don't like it when I tell them I've got a vision. But it's two-way. If they don't like any ideas that I have, they'll tell me straight up. We bounce ideas back and forward. There's no point being in an environment where no one can challenge me, or they're not willing to communicate. That's not how we work it. So really, it's a collaborative approach. And that's what I draw a lot of inspiration from, that we have that approach. And in terms of accountability, the finance director is my wife, so she keeps me in check a lot.
Doesn't get closer than that, does it?
Yeah. Well, when I come out with ideas, she's the first to be shooting me. I mean, the last thing you want to do is be an entrepreneur with a penchant for risk taking and be married to a fiscal conservative accountant.
So funny, Lauren, because you're obviously working with your other husband too, and I'm working with my husband, and we have basically exactly the same relationship.
I love that.
So
best idea, blah 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 blah, and he's like, right, and how many units do you want to give away? Have you seen our stock position?
I love it. The best partnerships, opposites. That's brilliant. Thanks for that insight, Shamia. I feel like she might even be in the room by your eyes looking up over the screen.
She's there.
Supervising.
Yeah.
I'd love, again, on this kind of line of conversation around accountability, and also Jules, as you say, kind of balancing this purposeful mission that you have, and also having a sustainable business that is profitable to do all the things that you want to do in the world. What strategies do you have in place, other than Charlie keeping you in check, to help the business really stay true to its philosophies, but also grow and scale?
I think sustainability is a really good word to use here. So the idea of doing more with less, I'm always gobsmacked by how much money some businesses just waste. I mean, literally even this last week, I got a quote for running an ad in the New York Times, one ad, and it came back with a $200,000 price tag, which is just crazy. So I think that as a business, we've really identified the areas of the business that we wanted to invest in. And outside of that, we run a very, very tight ship. So I think we're really good with waste, and it has allowed us to invest in the areas that are really true to the brand. So that being people, product, and I think price point is a really interesting one for us because we sought out to develop products that drove really amazing results within the first 30 to 60 days. We invest a huge amount of our money into developing our products, and our products often cost us more to make than what our competitors are selling their products for RRP. So I think making those products more accessible in RRP is definitely something that we're always fighting for. I think COVID is a really good example of that, where we saw our sales of our immunity products go up by 600% in a 3-week period. And gaining that type of scale allowed me to just pick up the phone to our manufacturer and say, right, what can we do? And we ended up dropping the price down by 35%. So I think that's definitely something that we're still continuously working through. But it's people, it's product, and it's giving back, and it's doing the right thing, like I say, for our community and for our brand. We do have a line in the P&L for charity and for giving back, and that's something that we sort of factor in. We're doing it right now for 2021. So a minimum, it's an absolute minimum, like I say, it's at least 1% of the money that we're making, we are putting back into the community. That being said, that's usually allocated for sort of the more long-term projects like the Charity Water Partnership. When things happen like COVID, again, it is really a case of us just being able to make responsible and educated decisions. We were in a good stock position, in a good cash position, and our business was doing well. So really the conversation and the focus within the team was, you know, who really needs our help? What area of the community really needs our help? And we did things that were small and perhaps not that meaningful for people. Like we had a store in New York, and our neighbors were a restaurant that were family run. They'd only been going for like 2 months. They had to shut down. So we raised funds so that they could pay their staff for 2 months. So just really small little things. Or we also obviously donated care packages for NHS workers and doctors and nurses in the US. So I think it's just a bit of a balancing act. I think you need to have a plan, because at the end of the day, we are a startup. We have only just turned over our first profit. So it's not really a profit that we are considering. And you have to be responsible. But then there's going to be other situations and other opportunities where you really sort of just need to make an educated decision.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. It would be powerful for us to now sort of talk about that kind of brand consumer relationship. You talked there about making decisions, Jules, that, you know, protect your brand. Lola, I'd love to explore with you this idea of kind of breaking as far as accessibility is concerned. Yes, we want to reach marginalized groups and so on, but sometimes it's actually also just about talking about those taboo subjects that for so long for all areas of society have been taboo, or, you know, not within a public domain to be discussed, like women's health or hormones, or, you know, the stuff that Moody, you know, is built on. So can you kind of talk about, you know, how important it's been for you to open up those conversations around health issues that can impact anyone regardless of their background, and then when it comes to developing a strong brand voice within the industry, what your strategy has been to really become a voice for those groups?
So, you know, the kind of concept for Moody started around 4 years ago. So Amy Thompson, who you know, she's my co-founder, and it was actually sort of her baby, her idea, because it was born out of her own health issues. So we met, you know, when she had this beautiful little idea, talking about, you know, creating some technology that taught and helped women around their hormonal and their endocrine system and their hormonal behavior. She had had some really bad experiences dealing with the practitioners and the medical profession around her specific issues. And she just thought, I'm going to take matters into my own hands and educate myself and do all those things. So we met, had this, amazing connection, and started to build this app. Now, when I think about it, going back even just 4 years ago, people were not that sure about hormones and the term moody and this and that, and people were embarrassed about talking about their periods, and it was still at that place. But there was a groundswell at that point where I think there were lots of advocates and platforms springing up talking about women's health issues, hidden conditions like endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome, and things that affect such large numbers of female populations around the world, and yet they're not discussed. They affect lots of women's lives quite significantly in some cases, and obviously some of these issues also affect fertility, which can be incredibly impactful on a woman's life. And I think shining that light on those issues was really important to us, reclaiming the word moody to moods are important. They're part of what makes us human, and that's what we say very much within our team. And it's important to understand that those moods are signals as well. So I think just being part of that changing of the language again, making things positive when they've historically been so negative or associated with negative images of women or negative feelings and responses and whatever else, was really important. So I think that's kind of like a first step, which I think we've done well. I think the education around the 4 phases of the cycle was really important. That was new. That's new research and newer science, and it's so intelligent, and it's given menstruating females, a really great roadmap to understand more about their hormonal behavior and what's actually going on during the cycle, and why and how they can help themselves in each of those phases, which is really powerful stuff. And there are lots of great, fantastic voices now in this space, talking about this stuff. And there's other technology, obviously, we know that is sitting in the same space as us. But what we chose to do was very much focus on how our hormones affect our moods. And we weren't focused on fertility, which is what some of the other apps out there have been focused on. So I can't remember the second part of your question, sorry.
It's all
I've been
good.
talking too long.
It was, well, I'm actually now distracted by your answer too, but we were talking about kind of the taboo and what your strategy has been to kind of elevate a brand voice that really breaks through that taboo and actually builds, I suppose, trust enough that people feel comfortable to open up and be part of that dialogue. I think, again, we chose to build some technology that was, was really firmly rooted in evidence-based information. I think that was really, really central to, our initial investors being interested, and, our next steps and the team that we managed to bring in at the beginning, because I think even though some of these concepts are out there in terms of hormones and periods and what goes on in that in that physiology, it needs to be substantiated by doctors and endocrinologists and healthcare providers who actually can say, yeah, this is the science. And it was really important that we gathered that team. So we put together a board in the initial phases of when we first started out. And, we brought together some really amazing experts, in the US when we did our launch in the US, and also here in the UK. And obviously it's my area. It's what I trained in my degree. This is my focus. And I think having those voices provided a confidence to talk about moods and being moody and using all that fun language that we've also done. Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of playfulness that actually does break down barriers and create trust, backed by a credible group of people who really do know what they're talking about. On the conversation of trust, Shamir, I suppose yoga as a practice, you know, has such strong roots in community and connection, and yet kind of, I suppose, outside of the studio. I'd love to know how more yoga has nurtured relationships and built trust so that your audience do feel comfortable and validated and supported and like they are able to come and be part of your community no matter who they are.
Yeah, I think if you appeal to a wider audience, people, when they see other people like them around when they come to a yoga studio, you don't need to advertise to them that you're accessible. It just comes. That's just a byproduct of that genre of people. Whereas if you're at a higher end studio, and you know, higher end people come with higher end expectations, and they don't like to see low end people just talk. I mean, I don't want to badmouth any studios, but by any means. But you know, the idea, again, I was talking to one of these studio owners about doing the £3 unemployed thing, and they were like, that would never work in our studio. That our customers get annoyed with class pass customers coming in. And like class pass customers are paying like 10, 12, 15 pounds. And that's like that sort of mentality where they're better than, you know, the people who are trying to be the emerging middle classes. Is that just boggles my mind. That shows exactly how segmented the market, the industry is. And I touched upon it last time in the panel discussion that we had before pre-pandemic, Lauren. And I did say is that I said to the people that we're just not addressing it. There's no one actually addressing the diversity that is required to be real with yourself and actually be who you know who they now have to be, because you know that's what Black Lives Matter has done. It's forced their hand, and it's shown a lot of people, you know, they've got their hand in the cookie jar. They've been so long deep entrenched in a very segmented market and very inaccessible market, that now that is gone such, you know, it's basically switched completely into this massive movement that they've had to look into a mirror, and for the right reasons. They've had to, you know, these other companies are having to change, and you know, that's only a good thing. With us, we've had high, low double digits ethnic minority teachers and students as our customer base. It's been something that we haven't really worried about, because I think we've always felt that because we're for the people will come. But it has evidently shone a light brighter that says that we do need to do more, and it's not just Black, it's minorities. And we you know, we're working on how we can, you know, improve that situation. In terms of validating people and supporting them, there's a lot of, I mean, because our studios have no breakout areas, they're literally just a shop front and a room. There's not really sort of like people come in and they leave, but people buy into teachers, and people have that, you know, they meet the same people who are buying into the teachers, and they build communities through that. So it's sort of happening sort of like by virtue of what we're offering already. And that's, you know, that's really strong. Yes, that's really strong that we have such good teachers, that they're, you know, that we're able to foster those relationships. And then from that, we work with like local communities that helps support the community. And we were really looking, again, it's another one of my visions, at how we can really harness this engaged mass of people who want to be yogic and helpful and share and give and all, you know, all these virtuous aspects. And we came up with an idea called Karma Army, and that's just basically matching people who need labor or skills or services with people who are willing to give. Yeah, so people need something, and then people are willing to give. So we've created a database across London of people who are willing to to give from our community, and we're now looking for people who are looking for stuff. But that was pre-pandemic, so you know that's something that we got in the works. Right now we've got bigger fish to fry in terms of getting people mentally back to where we need them to get without, you know, whilst being safe. But because there's these new challenges, we've had to take our support system online. So we've come up with more than just the online classes. We've got Connection Cafe, which is just like, it's not one of my ideas. It was just like, which of our teachers have skills that they want to hold a platform for 2 hours. And some of it was like karaoke, some of it is conversations just with people, some of it is open mic or talent, whatever it is. It's just a way for people just to be with their teacher and be with people. It's free to join. It's been really successful, and we've had other avenues through that platform that we've been able to move into that's really beneficial for the business.
Amazing. I love that. And I think it's such an interesting time for the fitness and I suppose the bricks and mortar business as far as wellness is concerned, because you've suddenly shifted from really high priced classes in the studio to having to be in a digital space. And I think you touched on this before, you just can't charge the same price for that. And so at what value do you place a digital experience versus a bricks and mortar experience where you've got all the fluffy towels and multiple different temperatured towels versus, a more accessible digital offering? And so that disparity is going to be a challenge for a lot of businesses. And I suppose that's probably for a whole nother conversation. I want to sort of wind things up so that we have time for a couple of questions. And actually, there's some of your beautiful imagery, Lola, that you mentioned before from the Moody Month Instagram account and also from the Newco's account as well. I want to talk about the future of wellness. And so we've really dug deep into what businesses need to be doing, are doing, how we need to react to the issues that matter to our audiences. Jules, what's your vision for the future of wellness, and where do you see the Newco fitting into all of that?
So I've got a feeling that Shamu, you might actually have the same answer as me. But for me, it's actually the concept of medicalizing wellness. I think that working in the US, it's been a really interesting journey, just how different people's outlooks are to health. It was a really funny experience. I bought tickets to the Times 100 Health Summit, thinking that it was going to be like a well-to-do event. But it was nothing like that. Bill Clinton was speaking and they were talking about opioids. And I've always thought it was so interesting, this huge divide between what we call wellness, which is herbs and yoga and being in nature, and then over-the-counter drugs and healthcare. And I think with COVID, we're really going to start to see the merge of these two worlds. I know that there are doctors in the US that are prescribing time in nature for various different mental health conditions. I know that the NHS have recently invested, I think it was £5 million, to this idea of green prescriptions. I think that the NHS are conducting research within an Ayurvedic herb to see whether it could be an alternative to antibiotics. So yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting time to work in wellness, where we're really starting to see some validity with the work that we do.
I love that. That's so interesting. I'm going to look that up after we finished our session. It's so fascinating to see that shifting, and just for those of us who work in this space, just almost shocking that it hasn't happened sooner, but we can only celebrate the slow progression that sometimes has to happen in these bureaucratic empires. Lola, moving forward, I'd love to ask you, what would you like to see Moody Month evolve into? What role do you want to play in kind of bringing better and more mainstream solutions to the wider demographic that we've talked about in today's session?
Well, first of all, we'd like to get to the point where we can translate Moody into every language in the world. That would be that would be, it really. There are so many things that we want to do at Moody. We want to, focus on, specific areas of health that are maybe a bit more niche, maybe quite specific to different groups, ethnic groups, or who have certain genetic risks. And so those conversations that are really not talked about and don't have a lot of research around, we'd like to be able to, give that more attention. And also, for example, lots of issues that affect Black women that the research just doesn't exist on. So yeah, there are lots of exciting things that we'd like to be part of or create.
Exciting. Yeah, it's a really incredible time to be having such an impact, and the opportunity for reaching a global audience is now so much more real. We're all more connected. I think there are 4.8 billion people online, and that number is ever increasing. As we wind up, and I'd love to take any questions in the Q&A function now. If anybody has a question for our panel, please pop that in the chat, in the Q&A function now. Shamir, what's in the pipeline for more yoga? How do you plan on kind of continuing with this breakdown of barriers and reaching a wider audience, especially given the kind of digitalization of the space as well?
Yes. Completely digitalization, easy for me to say. So we're already in this sphere now, like pushed into it, and it's been work in progress for us, but we've done really well. We got featured in Time Out, top 10 awesome. Online platforms after about a week.
Done.
Obviously they've got they either didn't do their research or they got really good taste. But yeah, I mean, digital space is something we really want to move into. Definitely for us, we want to really work on our studios being much more than just the physical. We've been very physical. We do have segues into more spiritual disciplines, but we want to do a lot more breathing and meditation aspects, which is something I'm really passionate about. And which is the backbone, which is yoga. So I mean, it's just like, it's difficult to get the Western crowd to do Eastern practices, but we're determined to to help people's mental health through breathing, through deeper meditative practices, and we want to bring that into the studios. We also want to bring that into a more comprehensive digital offering, and we want to be working a lot with our students on emotional and as well as the physical health. So in terms of like our studio expansion plan, we were looking at like 100 studios. I'm scratching my head because it's hurting me while saying it. 100 studios by 2022 or 2023. Like, it was a very ambitious target, but
it didn't sound so ambitious when you told us 8 months ago.
Yeah, the tools have been dropped. The tools have been downed, and we'd have to just sort of like see how we're getting on in terms of what we're doing, in terms of how the studio performances are doing, because we've got 33, 35 leases with half timetable, half capacity. So it's very challenging. But the future of wellness for me is digital. It's virtual reality. It's collaborative. It's I think the bricks and mortar in other spheres of business, not so much yoga, because yoga does rely on. That's why I did foresee the digital world coming closer and closer. It doesn't infringe on yoga as much as every other discipline, because of that human connection. That's literally the only thing that had me going to continue to expand, because online will eventually eat up a lot of bricks and mortar businesses, I think. And I don't see it as a bad thing. That's just evolution digitization of our
There's
lives.
a consolidation happening in the industry,
Yeah,
isn't there?
you know, it happens it's happening in every facet of business. So it's inevitable to be happening in the fitness industry. I think it's a positive thing. It allows people to be save time, and a lot more flexible, be in their own space, and have to dress up. You know, these other studios where people are coming with makeup on and stuff like that. It's a very foreign concept to me. I'm just like, just rock up. Oh, to be a woman, eh? Yeah, so yeah, that's our take on it. I think the future's bright. I think it's strong. I think, especially post-pandemic, more people are going to be into health and wellness. I think it's a good time to be in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We'll take a question from our audience. Sarah says, do you ever feel the pressure of such high expectations from customers, clients, and yourself to always be doing better with diversity, with sustainability? And how do you manage that? Jules, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think, like I said, for us, it's important, and we do the things that we can do, and we don't make excuses, and we try to communicate our limitations. I think the one that I find really interesting is this idea that somebody like me can dictate the board. Like, less than 1% of funding goes to women, and the people who sit on my board are investors who gave us a certain amount of capital, and they have the right, as part of that investment, to sit on the board. I really wish that, you know, we were in a position actually when we go out to fundraise where we had so many different options that we would say, actually, this is something that's really important to me, and this is how I want to construct from board level. I think that that's something that we should be talking about more. I mean, just inclusivity within the VC space is something that's not spoken about, but I think I must have met with like over 100 different investors, and I could probably count on one hand how many of them were people of color or Black or female. So I think that that's always interesting to me, just because we are such a young brand. Outside of that, I think what I find really interesting is that people are really demanding, but equally, as soon as you turn around and you explain to them where you're at and where you're hoping to be, they completely get it and understand, and they go, oh, thank you so much for telling us. So I think sometimes we can be a little bit oversensitive when somebody sort of question or holds us accountable. But actually, as long as you're really transparent, people are so happy to back you as long as you're being honest.
Yeah, I love that. And not to jump straight into some sort of defensive position, and just own the fact that, you know, I know for us as a team, we're often overestimated in terms of the size of the team behind Well-To-Do. And actually, when we sort of say we're just a small team doing our best, people are very understanding, and maybe those expectations are only there because of how you've presented yourself in the market, which is a blessing and a curse in some ways.
I would also say that I think we should be looking at the brands that haven't done anything. I mean, I thought that was really interesting when, well, just really throughout the year. I think the brands that have remained silent, I do question their silence. And I think that it's, you know, I'm not complaining about the work that we do, because I love it, and that is what we built the company to do. But it is hard work, as in, you know, many of the times when we are developing initiatives, we have people in the team who are really torn, or, you know, they might have personal experiences with this. And, you know, we've had members of the team who have come to us crying, you know, feeling a lot of emotion about some of the things that we do. So, yeah, you know, it's not always easy. So do approach, you know, the conversation, you know, with understanding and love. But like I say, I think sometimes social media managers and founders can be a little bit sensitive.
Yeah, sure. I think this is a really nice question to finish on, and it's a bit more of a personal question for you all. Poonam says, what does it mean to be well, in inverted commas, to you all? Lola, what would you say to that question?
Oh, so to be well, personally, it sounds like a cliche, but it feels there are a few things, you know, being connected to others, feeling balanced in myself, feeling that I'm of service to others. You know, there are lots of different things like that. Having people to love, people who love us, you know, having a purpose. Yeah, those things are all part of it. And obviously all coming off that, having good food, eating a healthy diet, you know, exercising regularly, meditation, 7 to 10 hours sleep a night. All of those things contribute to my sense of wellness. But there's that top layer, which is that real kind of, you know, being connected, having a purpose, and yeah, people, I guess.
Yeah, that's really nice. And I think one of the most important aspects of wellness becoming more accessible is that we stop thinking about it as an individual pursuit and actually think about wellness as a collective pursuit. You know, how does my well-being impact others around me? How does it impact the planet? How does it impact future generations, and so on? Shamir, what about you? What does being well mean to you?
I think Lola was very succinct and very concise, even. It was very, exactly from that point of view. I think, you know, caring, sharing, giving, you know, the lots of like basic human connection ideas is what makes life. Having strong mental health, being happy, being able to breathe and take a moment to be grateful. I think that's allowing people to understand where they're at. So many people beat themselves up about what they haven't got when they take a moment, just take a deep breath and just be grateful for what you do have, and take a moment to appreciate your family and the environment and friends, and live on this planet for all its crazy coincidences that we're even here. Just take it for what it is, and then try and enjoy yourself rather than beat yourself up about like all the differences that you feel that you've been taught to, you know, they're trying to direct you to believe.
I love that. And we've all kind of simplified our perspectives on that over the last 7 or 8 months, having been forced to really simplify the way we live our lives. Jules, what would you add just to finish?
I completely agree with the rest of the panel. I think sort of going back to how some of the things that I said about the wellness industry, which is this idea of like having your good days and having your bad days. I think just being really connected with your body and really sort of trusting your intuition and doing things for the right reasons for yourself, sort of going back to what you guys were saying, and having really strong and good mental health, not living a life of rules, I think is really important. And yeah, really just enjoying life and not worrying about stupid things like where you look in leggings, I don't know.
But probiotics also help, don't they, Jules?
I mean, the thing is, and what's really interesting about what we would say though, is that when I had really bad IBS, I went to the GP and they said to me, you should take an antidepressant, not because you're depressed, but because it will help your bloating, which is nuts, because the thing that helped the bloating the most was to ease my stress through breathing. So, I mean, obviously there was a lot involved and, you know, it took a very long time, but I think sometimes we really overcomplicate, you know, things that are very natural to us. You know, things like sleeping have become such a challenge, and it's something that should be very natural to us.
Right. It is so fascinating that there is a whole industry now around sleep and breathing. I mean, breath work is just the flavor of the month, isn't it? And I interviewed a wonderful breathwork teacher, a guy called Richie Bostock, the other day, and he's like, I get paid to teach people to breathe. Like, it even blows his mind. But that's the world that we live in, where we kind of have complicated things so much, but we need it, don't we? We need those simple reminders. Please, if you can join me, for those still live with us, in the chat by just thanking our guests this afternoon, to Jules, to Lola and Shamir. I'm sure that you've been as inspired as I have by their generosity in sharing their thoughts and their perspectives and the work that they are doing in the world. So I'd love for you to join me in thanking them in the chat. For those of you who are joining us for the rest of our series, I really look forward to seeing you. If you didn't purchase a ticket for the entire series, you can still grab tickets for the remaining sessions. You can see the next session is all around plotting a new fitness ecosystem. And we then have our innovation spotlight coming up as well. And some of the speakers that we've got coming up joining us are on the screen right now. And the link for that will be in the chat. And so if you, just a final few little points here, if you're looking for further insights, we recently released our latest report. It's completely free for you to download. It's an incredible report. It's 60 plus pages of insight into brands that are innovating, doing things differently, disrupting the landscape across the industry. And you can download it today. Again, the link for that will be in the chat. And please do join us. We do have a Facebook group where we're continuing the conversation around the whole series. You'll also be receiving an email from our team with the relevant follow-up from everything mentioned here today. Plus, very generously from Jules and Shamir, you will have access to 20% off the Nuco and also a month of more yoga online. Thank you so much for that, guys. Of course, Moody Month is free to use, and we would obviously invite the relevant guests to do so. So again, Jules, Lola, Shamir, thank you so much for being part of the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of you who were joining us live, thank you for the incredible work you're doing with such integrity and with such passion, and ultimately to advance this agenda of inclusivity and accessibility across the industry. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.